Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da, habati fillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A question was asked, brother, uncle, I'm from Pakistan and I try to adhere to the way of the Salaf. I have the following concerns. First, asking of intercession of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is clear-cut shirk. So isn't the following an open invitation to shirk? And he posted the fatwa from the major scholars in Egypt, from the panel of the major scholars, Dar al-Ifta in Egypt. And it said, especially pay attention to the last paragraph. And then he said, also, aren't the ulama of the Salaf, I think you mean also, haven't the ulama of the Salaf fallen short to openly refute such misguidance? Some people who claim Salafiyya, they allow praying behind people who do bid'ah mukaffara or eat their slaughter, calling them still Muslims. Whereas we have a general principle that one who does bid'ah mukaffara, he is not to be prayed behind, and likewise, their slaughter not to be eaten. So how come these people allow such deviation, and what is the hukum upon them, and praying behind them as supporting kuffar is also kufr? This is a very, very serious question, or serious couple of questions, which have immense implication and import with regards to them, and we'll try to give them some justice, because I do believe there are some things that need clarifying here. First and foremost, ahabati fillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says في كتابه المبين والذين تدعون من دونه ما يملكون من كتمير إن تدعوهم لا يسمعوا دعاكم ولو سمعوا ما استجابوا لكم. Naam, ila akhira ayat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says في كتابه المبين, which means وَالَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ مَا يَمْلِكُونَ مِن كِتْمِيرٍ. Those people or things which you supplicate to, they do not possess anything, even the skin of the date seed. And if you supplicate to them, they can't hear you, and they can't hear your dua, and nor can they answer them, nor will they answer you. And then Yawm al-Qiyamah, in the hereafter, they will deny those who committed shirk with them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies for us that it is impermissible, it is haram, and this is a form of shirk and kufr to supplicate to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the people supplicate to cannot benefit them nor cause them harm. And they only cause them harm in regards to having committed shirk. So in the hereafter, they will be of the khasirin, and perhaps and in this life as well, for doing that evil shirk. And so, getting back to the questioner, they affirm that, yes, these supplicating to the dead saints, even if we love them, even if they were righteous people, or higher than them and better than them, would be the prophets, like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam, Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub alayhim salatu wasalam, all the way to our father Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. All of it is shirk. And whether you supplicated to the angel Jibreel or other angels, that is shirk. So in the first part of the question, our brother said, and he affirmed that this is, all of these actions are shirk. And he says, also, aren't the ulama of the Salaf, so first, his first question, he says, so isn't the following an open invitation to shirk? So naam, this fatwa that I read in its 4 pages in English, that it is an open invitation to shirk, but there are no doubt some very important details that we're going to have to discuss and hash out. And so we'll get to that as we get into the question. So let's go to the second part of the question. Also, aren't the ulama of the Salaf, haven't they fallen short to openly refute such misguidance? Absolutely not. So this is maybe perhaps a shortcoming in your research, a shortcoming in your studies, a shortcoming in your buhuth and research, because I could look at walls here and walls over here and also some shelves behind me. And this, we haven't even got to the other sections dealing with shirk and kufr and the doubts of the mushrikeen and the doubts of the and the doubts of the people of bid'ah and the people of bid'ah mukaffara, the people who have mistaken, and the people of ta'wil, likewise, the people who have misinterpreted these messiah as well. So no, the ulama of the Salaf. And I do want to also clarify your ibara, your statement. You said the ulama of the Salaf. When we talk about the Salaf, we're talking about the Salaf as-Salih. This is what the usual reference is to, meaning the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, wa tabi'in, those first 3 generations. That's generally what we're talking about when we talk about the Salaf. Now, if you mean in contemporary times, you're talking about Salafi scholars, meaning scholars who try to adhere to that same methodology and manhaj and aqidah and way of practicing Islam, then you need to distinguish between the two. And I'll reiterate my answer that Ahlus Sunnah in this time is dealing with those issues. It has been dealing with these issues before we were born even, and they have smashed and obliterated the arguments of the people of bid'ah and desires, but these will be ongoing until maybe the day of judgment, these sects, because the great influence through history of philosophy, Ahl Kalam specifically, a great danger from philosophical understandings instead of going directly to the Nas. And this brings up a lot of issues of why we would have a fatwa like this. And this is going to answer part of your first question. So when people are influenced by Ahl Kalam, and so when you mention this fatwa is coming from Dar al-Iftah in Egypt. Okay, Dar al-Iftah in Egypt, the main predominant ideology, we just got to say, in Egypt, predominantly when it comes to Aqidah, is not the way of the Salaf. It is the way of Ahl Kalam. It's the way of the people of rhetoric. So the most prestigious institutions like Al-Azhar and so forth, predominantly they are pushing, and most of their scholars now, I've heard that they have Salafi scholars as well, but mostly is pushing out in the from Azhar, which being such a prestigious historical institution, that it is predominantly going to be Ashari Creed, even though they will try to study, because their job is to try to distort the principles of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, who they refer to as Wahhabi or Salafi or all kind of other names. And so in their institutions, they will actually produce books and things like this and research, literally, refuting Ahl Sunnah. And as you go to a Salafi institute, you're going to have the opposite. They're going to spend a lot of effort talking about the understanding of Ahl Kalam and where they go wrong, meaning the Maturidiyya, Asha'ira, and others. So it's very important for us to know and understand what are the dynamics of these polemics. Why are these different groups? What is happening here? And that's going to give you some insight. A second part of this, as we gain insight, we'll see that the ulama of Ahl Sunnah throughout history, they did not make takfeer of the people just outright of the people of Ahl Kalam. So even the people that had some of these distorted, innovated arguments, because they will use people who are great imams of Ahl Sunnah, but that made a mistake in these areas. So you cannot go back and then say, well, this is kufr, they have this opinion, they're kafirs, and then those great imams that had those opinions that made mistakes, they're kafirs, and then if they use nusus from, okay, no, it's a very dangerous train of thought. And we refer to this as silsila to takfeer. You know, when you begin to say, for example, I had this experience. I was in the UAE after I left Yemen, and I met a guy from Jordan, and when he found out I had come from Yemen and I had sat with Sheikh Muqbil for a time and so forth, that I was Salafi basically, that he had quite a bit of problems, and he started talking and making takfeer of the government there in the UAE, all the Muslim governments. He was very influenced by Sayyid Qutb. So we had a very interesting discourse, big argumentation. He basically called my ulama, all disbelievers, and that I was a hypocrite. I can't remember what he called me. But anyhow, so we had a very interesting, heated discussion. I said, khalas, khalas. And this was in Arabic. I said, let's go to the masjid, because they had just made the adhan. And we're outside of a masjid. We're pretty close to a masjid. He said, la. He said, no. He said, we cannot pray in the masjid, because in the masjid, the imam gets a salary from this kafir government. And I said, wow. That was the first time I ever heard this kind of thought. And I said, and then he said, and the muezzin, the muezzin is also a disbeliever, because he calls the adhan for the taghut. And then he said, and the people praying in there, they're all hypocrites, because this is like Masjid Darar, and they're praying in, an illegal masjid, or, however his interpretation. So we're having this heated argument, and I couldn't help but say, because my Arabic was quite limited at that time, and I said, and to the shaitan, you're following the shaitan, which he was. And he said, no, he said, anta shaitan. He said, you are the shaitan. Then my brother from Uzbekistan, he pulled me in the bash. He said, Khalid, let's go. So, because I was about to knock his head off. But let's get back to the story. Let's get back to the crux of the issue. So what we do have to understand, Habatifillah, is that people have different interpretations, and the people of Ahlul Sunnah throughout history did not generally make takfeer of the people who distort the divine names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there was so much more in their aqidah alongside with that. They did not make takfeer of them. And why? Because one of the prohibitors of takfeer is what? One of the mu'ana. It is ta'wil. The ta'wil fasid, even though it's a illegitimate misconstruing of the divine text and using a dalil, but it is a legitimate prohibitor for making takfeer, that for those reasons, we would refrain from making takfeer. Secondly, with regards to this issue of takfeer, I would not be in that role. That is not my job, and I would not be going against the major scholars in Egypt, in the Dar al-Iftah. So that's another point. Thirdly, we would leave this to Ahl al-Ilmi wa Fiqh wa Sunnah. And I don't know of any of the scholars who make takfeer. Rather, they reprimand them and they say, no, this is a major mistake that they make here, they make there. Because these are very cautious matters that have immense import. They affect the whole society in the Muslim world. Okay? And so these are very delicate issues. And these issues, when it comes to making takfeer, especially on this level, you would refer to the major scholars would have that role. That is not for you and I to get in those affairs. The next point of your question, you said, some people claim Salafiyah, they allow praying behind. So this also, this aspect of your question, that there are scholars from Ahlul Sunnah who do not make takfeer or allow praying behind. So I don't know of any scholars that may allow, if someone has bid'ah mukaffara and they say, yeah, pray behind the one who disbelieves in Allah. No, I don't know anybody like that. I don't know. Those aren't the scholars that I study with in Medina and Saudi, in Hail, or in Jeddah, or in the other places, Hufuf, Dammam, or those are all places in Saudi Arabia. And then I didn't even mention Yemen. So I don't know any scholars like that. And I can talk about, at least probably on behalf, inshallah ta'ala, of at least 40 different scholars we could probably name. So that's one point. Secondly, what you do have to understand, this also goes back to the issue of takfeer, is that takfeer is of two types. And I think you know this. Takfeer mutlaq, takfeer mu'ayyan. Takfir mutlaq, the general takfir. Whoever does this, they disbelieve. Okay, whoever supplicates other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have disbelieved. That's called takfir mutlaq, general takfir. Takfir mu'ayyan is when you begin to implement it on a particular so-and-so. I saw Joe at the grave. I saw Muhammad. I saw Khalid. I saw Fred. They were at the grave supplicating to a dead man. Now, then you look at Fred and those things, and you're getting into the mas'ala of talking about specific individual and those conditions with regards to that. So the point being is that when it comes to applying the issue of takfir and even tabdir, that these issues, there's an aspect of ijtihad from the scholar or from the judge, that they are trying to get a juristic reasoning, meaning that maybe not all the scholars of Ahl Sunnah on the same principles are going to necessarily come to the same conclusion. They may not. So when it comes to saying someone has done bid'ah mukaffara, or that individual is a disbeliever now, then you're going to have differences of opinion. And these differences of opinion, it is impermissible for you to make al-wala wal-bara, making love and hate based upon that, and saying, well, khalas, they're disbelievers too because they didn't, man lam yukaffara kafir fuhuwa kafir. Trying to take what Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab said, and probably prior to him others, maybe Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, I'm not sure. But Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, what we do know, he's mentioned something very important for us, and that is, ليس كل, and this is a paraphrase, ليس كل من يقع في كفر تكون كافر. Everyone who does an act of disbelief is not a disbeliever. And that shows you the nuances of takfir, that it's not just black and white like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, other extremists say. No. Rather, these are nuanced masail and issues in the religion that require darasa. They require fahm, an understanding, and a holistic approach with understanding the book and the sunnah. And so, for that reason, one of the reasons you might find somebody in your village in Pakistan, maybe you live in a village, maybe you live in Islamabad, maybe, I don't know. Wherever you live, you might find differences of opinion from people who tamassak bi sunnah. This is a scholar on the sunnah, and this is a scholar on the sunnah. How come he says it's okay to pray in that masjid, and he says, no, they're kafir? Those are differences of opinion based on their implementation, based on of those principles of takfir, and based on their level of knowledge even. There could be a variety of reasons why they have difference of opinion. But for you then to go and say, well, these guys are destroyed, or should we make takfir on them? No. This is the most dangerous, and this is exactly how Ahl Takfir, and this is exactly how the original Khawarij, how they began their reign of terror and their reign of takfir, in that they began to say, oh, this one differs with us, kafir. This one is not making hijrah to us, kafir. This one has a different opinion, which is not to our liking, kafir. Okay? You see and understand, you have to know and understand the dangers and of making and trying to force people to take your view, especially views that have an aspect of ijtihadiyya. If I see so-and-so as a mubtadi'ah and someone else says, no, he has a few mistakes, he's still in the fold of the sunnah, he's still Ahl Sunnah, his usul is Ahl Sunnah. That doesn't mean now, just because you listen to me or you listen to this one, you have to make al-wala wal-bara, love and hate based on those opinions, and then get into the issue and say, no, you guys are kafirs because you didn't call him a kafir. And then they say, no, you guys are this takfiris because you guys, no, especially those issues which have a legitimate differences of opinion, legitimate ijtihadat, where no concrete conclusion is going to be perhaps deduced. And again, it requires judgment. So that is why you're going to find those differences of opinion. And I say from that, it's not that they allow, as you said. So how come these people allow such deviation, and what is the hukm upon them? So the hukm upon them, it's not that they allow that deviation. They may see something as a serious mistake, or they may say, hey, we need to apply the principles of takfir. We need to, bulugh al-hujjah is a part of make a takfeer, informing the person of the correct view, and in something that they, in fahimu hujjah, that they understand the evidences you give them. For example, I can't go to a Chinese imam and he's messing up. He's got some graves out in the field and he's like calling the people to make, I can't just go to him and speak to him in English. He doesn't speak a drop of English. And I say, hey, Sheikh Muhammad from China, hey, this is shirk, and Allah says, okay, he may not understand Arabic. He may recite Arabic better than me and read better, but he may not understand it. He may not understand much of the deen, and he's probably not going to understand English. So then I can't say I established the proof on him. He didn't understand a dang thing, but yeah, he's a disbeliever now. So you have to understand there's so many nuances here. And I just want to highlight that. And hopefully I didn't get too far off and that I was able to answer your question. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.